Maybe Memento. Alright, let's see. Everything is checking out so far. Let me just get a sound check on this. There we go. Alright. I guess I don't really have to sound check them anymore. That was an issue before I had a global microphone set, so I can close some of these things because we've already kind of talked about them. Yeah! Let's close this one, too, and continue. Alright. So I was pretty surprised how well things went in terms of the little pilot episode of my story here. For those of you who missed it, just go back and check out K-Pack Pioneers episode 1, my autobiographical true crime stream. But in the meantime, I was actually a little bit uncertain of how I was going to do this stream and where I was even going to start. I don't even think I knew where I was going to start when I started episode 1, and then I just kind of, on a whim, decided to cover the anonymous stuff. And where we left off from the end of episode 1 was basically the end of the reaction, my first reaction at Calvin's house. And some funny stuff happened next because, you know, when you embark on crazy missions in life, sometimes things jump right off to a rough start, and that was the case for us. We did our thing, and I remember that night that for whatever reason we couldn't get everything home, and I don't really know why. I guess I was trying to limit the amount of cargo that I came back home with, but I came back with just enough illegal stuff to you know, spin everything into chaos for a moment. Because after our first reaction, I came home really late that night. It was probably almost sunrise or something. I'm not sure exactly, but I came home, you know, and on the same day, or we left some of these things at Calvin's house. We left a big bottle of muriatic acid, like a gas can, some various equipment, but the real key stuff I had brought home with me. And that same day, or the day after that, Calvin's stepdad had gone into the garage, and he found a big jug of muriatic acid. And I didn't know this at the time, and I'm not sure how much he knew at the time, but his stepdad had previously been involved in all kinds of crime in his youth many years before. So he recognized muriatic acid and knew what it was used for. And I got a call from Calvin. He said, "Hey, you know, man, my stepdad knows we were making meth." I was like, "What? How does he know that?" He said, "Well, he found a bottle of hydrochloric acid, and that's muriatic acid." And he told me, you know, it's Calvin speaking to me. He told me, "I know what you guys were doing in here last night." And Calvin tried to play it off and told him, No, we were just smoking weed, man. Like, we're not making meth." And his stepdad had told him that he knew he was lying. So eventually he kind of gave him a half-truth, and we joked about it for a long time after that. He said, No, we were all sitting around smoking weed here last night, but there was this one kid, and he kept swirling this glass jar around and saying, "I'm just doing some science." And we joked about that for a long time afterward, that was his cover story. Well, the same day that his stepdad found this, I got confronted too, because for the previous few weeks, I had a recording studio and a bunch of drug paraphernalia in my room, but the recording studio was such a chaotic mess. There were so many cables and everything. I mean, it's very similar to what on the floor right here, but across the whole floor of the room, I had a PA system. I had a drum set. I had big speakers. I had all these things. And my grandma told me that she wasn't going to be going in my room anymore because it was just dangerous, and she didn't want to trip on something and fall down. And this was a ruse. It worked. She played it for a couple weeks, never looking inside, never coming in. So I just didn't make any effort to hide anything anymore, and I had a big dab rig for smoking hash oil, and I had all these drug things sitting out in the room. And one day, I guess the day after I came back from Calvin's, she decided to open the door and come in. Not only did she see my wax rig, my marijuana paraphernalia, but she poked around a little further and went into the closet, and in the closet I had acetone, laboratory glassware, solvents, all these crazy things. Well, that day, I walked into my house and she said, "I need to talk to you. I found a meth lab in your room." And she'd seen Breaking Bad, and she knew that I was really into that show at that time. And I was like, "What?" She said, "Look, I found acetone, I found laboratory glassware, I found this, all these things in your room." She'd given me this big document. She made it herself, and it had a list of pros and a list of cons. First of it was a write-up, a document saying, "I went into Vincent's room on this date and found da-na-na-na-na-na." I'm not really sure to this day who that document was intended for, but it was written in a narrative style as if it was going to be presented to someone, and I'm not really sure, what the intention was with this document. But there was this list of pros and things. Here's what happens if you smoke meth and make meth and sell drugs. You can, and I wasn't even smoking meth, but she probably didn't know that at that time. Usually when people have a meth lab, they're doing meth. So there was a whole bunch of cons, and I don't remember any of the pros. It's kind of surprising that there were even any, And she sat me down on the couch, and she said, "Look, I'm not going to tell your mom and dad yet, but if this doesn't stop now, then I will." So she pretty much explained to me the trajectory of life if I went down that road. And she told me, "The only reason that I put up with your mom's drug use in this house," my mom had been, she'd been sober for quite some time, at this point, 8 years, but the only reason I put up with that from her was because she had you, and if she didn't have a kid, she would have been out a long time ago. And that was pretty much the way it was broken down to me. And at this point, I was on a mission, like nothing was going to stop me. You'd have to kill me or arrest me to stop me at that time. And so everything went in one ear and out the other. Well, took everything out of the house, and really all I did was just hide it better. I started using the attic in the house because she's too scared of rats and would never go in there. She always was worried about rats in the attic and so forth, and so in fact, to this day, I'm not sure if there's still stuff up there, but I don't think so. I think I eventually got everything out of there. what I was really using the attic space for specifically was settling jars of red phosphorus in sulfuric acid, because you have to do that for 24 to 48 hours. It's this long process where the RP slowly drops from solution, or not from solution, but from suspension in these acids. So I started using the attic. I started using 73 Toll Road, certain places to keep things, but I was by no means going to stop. And around the same time, who I now consider to be my first ever criminal associate, my first ever criminal right-hand man, Josh, who went by the name Exodus. He wanted in, and I think a lot of it was just because he felt really trapped in. We worked in the same place. He felt really trapped in his work and in his lifestyle, living basically paycheck to paycheck, smoking weed, deep depression he had at that time. And he said, I want in on anything you're doing. So we teamed up, and we had a blast together. He drove, so he had a car. So we started transporting things around, moving things around with the car, and we actually built, in early 2015, we built this place. We called it Fort Jameson, because our friend Jameson would come in there and hang out with us. We just kind of thought it was a funny name, Fort Jameson. And it was deep in the woods of Aliso Viejo. I could actually give you the coordinates. In fact, I think I have them in my book. But anyway, we built this really cool spot. We go there and smoke weed. And I dug in the ground this pit. And I put a big cooler, like one of those plastic igloos that you get. Put it in there, all the way up to the opening of it. And then over the top, I had a plywood board with a tarp on it. On top of the tarp, we had natural vegetation and dirt. And so even if you were standing pretty much on top of it, you wouldn't know it was there. And you'd lift this big plywood board up. And inside this cooler were these bottles of methyl alcohol. In fact, it's a yellow heat that you get from the store. It's an antifreeze for engine lines. It's 99.1% methyl alcohol with an additive and a lubricant. I put these bottles of methyl alcohol in this cooler. Other things, matchbooks, tinctures, things like that you need for the manufacture of meth. And we'd go down there and smoke weed. And we were driving this gold Honda that he owned from Aliso Viejo up to Rancho Santa Margarita, which is where Calvin lived, back and forth with this meth lab in it. Yeah. That's interesting stuff there, Murder Inc. I didn't know that. So we were driving back and forth to RSM with this meth lab in Josh's car. I was starting to learn, you go through these things with trial and error, and each time that you do a reaction, or each time that you do a project, and whatever it is, and it could be anything, you get a little better at it, and you start refining and figuring out, what works better. And this is normal for the evolution of the modus operandi of a criminal. And that extends, of course, to my chemistry knowledge. And did a small handful of reactions with him. Nothing serious, but getting a feel for the process a little better. And one day, maybe a couple months later or so, Josh and I realized that the brake light, the tail light on his Honda, had been out this entire time. And we were always smoking blunts and smoking joints in the car. We were young and careless and didn't realize that was the case. Now, we could have been pulled over at any time for this tail light. And if the police had pulled the car over, this is 2015, so the laws were a little bit... I mean, now I don't think that they search your car. I don't know if they search your car if it smells like weed, maybe. California, maybe they do. Not too sure. But back in those days, if you got pulled over by the police and your car smelled like weed, you were getting searched, And so we came to this realization, like, holy shit, dude, we dodged a bullet. Like, we could have been pulled over. They would have taken one whiff of the pot smoke rolling out of the car, and they would have searched our vehicle and found this meth lab in the car. They never did. So, we started to see that Calvin was tweaking, and he had these delusions of grandeur about how much money we could make making drugs together. And so we started a little bit distancing ourselves from him on a professional level, and we started to think for other avenues. And one of the things that I've mentioned before with people, like, I was an aspiring drug dealer and criminal, and I didn't really do drugs. Like, I smoked weed, drank alcohol, did pills here and there, so, but I didn't have connections to, like, meth and Xanax and all these things that came up later. But we were at the ground level trying to build a drug network, and it was very hard. We got burned on a small quantity of cocaine one time, and just pretty much ran into a lot of trouble or a lot of difficulty at trying to sell drugs, and things started to fizzle for us. At the same time, I was working on music, and basically from the very beginning, especially considering that the FBI was, like, watching me from the hacking stuff, and I felt their looming presence in the background here and there. And every time I would, like I mentioned last time, that every time I would start gathering my supplies, the FBI would call my phone and ask if I was up to anything. So I struggled a lot with the duality of trying to go down that road, but then also knowing that, like, I didn't want to go down, like, there was a piece of me, a part of my soul that didn't want to go down that road, and so I was in and out of criminal intent, and sometimes I wanted to do illegal things, and other times I just wanted to make records and just be a stoner, Just smoking a lot of weed at that time. I think this was 2015 that this even happened, but one day, I was walking the trails of Aliso Viejo. In fact, right between, if you go in your maps and check out Journey School in Aliso Viejo, it's like right at the base of Pacific Park Drive. There's a trail, passes Journey School, and it does this. Let's see if I can do it from this direction so you guys see the same thing as me. It does this hooking thing. Like, it goes around and then under the street and comes around. There's some baseball fields up here. And Pacific Park is this major street that goes up the hill from Alicia Parkway up to Town Center, which is at the corner of Aliso Creek Road and Pacific Park Drive. And you can, on the trails, right at the same time that this trail does this hook like this, right off to the right, there's these 3 drainage tunnels that basically go under Pacific Park, and then they continue to the baseball fields. And Josh and I were always going to those 3 tunnels and smoking weed and hanging out down on the trails. One day I was out there alone. I had some weed in my pocket. And my friends from a year and a half prior, good. My friends from a year and a half prior had seen the route that I was going down, and there was some distance and some separation that had started to develop. These were really, pretty cool guys, Davis Rulin and Sean O'Flaherty and stuff. And they saw the path that I was on. My band Nice. My band had pretty much deserted me, and I was making songs solo at this point. And I knew because of that I had to get a new group of friends. I was feeling that. I was like, I want to like meet new people and branch out from these original people that I was going down that road with, smoking weed and alcohol and stuff. And so I got to that turn point, which you're now, so I go with that, this way. What? I live. And got to this turn in the road, and I started to look down to my right, which is where these tunnels are. They're in here. At the end of the tunnels, I could see this group of teenagers sitting around in the distance. I could smell their smoke. And I'll never forget that decision moment that I had to make a decision. Am I going to go left and go around to the baseball field, or go under the street and go talk to these people? No, I didn't know that his family lived. I thought they lived in Garden Grove. That's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, that's my area. I was able to see some of those later ONS crime scenes that way. And I got to decide: am I going to go down this tunnel and go meet these people that I could see in the distance? So I was weighing the options, but I was also stoned. And when I get stoned, I'm a little less social and a little less extroverted. I become more in my head. But I had weed in my pocket. If I hadn't had that weed in my pocket, I never would have gone down this tunnel. But I had it. And at the last second, I said, I'm going to go down those tunnels. I went through there, and I got to the other end, and there was these kids sitting there. They're all smoking bongs, rolling joints, doing all these. One of them seemed to be like the ringleader of the pack, because everyone really gravitated around him. And very, very quickly, I found out why. His name was Jacob McKelvie. If you read the description of this video, you'll see that this series is dedicated in loving memory of some people, and he's at the top of the list. He was a kid. He was maybe 6 months to a year younger than me, and graduated the previous year. So he graduated 2015. This must have been right after he graduated from high school. And he was rolling these things that he called them Jacob Spliffs. All his friends, well, Jacob Spliff. They had like a little more tobacco in it. And he was just one of the coolest fucking people that I've ever known. And we hit it off right away. I told him, hey, I was, a few months ago, I was a drug manufacturer. I was doing this. And he was really popular amongst his group of friends because he was very, very heavily dependent upon benzodiazepines. Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan, Valium, these kinds of things. He had started really young. The doctors put him on it when he was like in basically middle school. And he had horrible, crippling panic attacks and an anxiety disorder, major depressive disorder, all these different afflictions that he was basically treating with prolific drug abuse. But I saw the way that all these other kids were like just at his every whim. Like everybody wanted to be around Doobie Snacks, Jacob McKelvie, because he always had all the drugs, all the Xanax and stuff. We were talking that day, smoking and everything. We got along really well, and we got in his car that night, that evening. We were kind of dropping different people off, and we were talking music and talking all these different things. And we were the last two in the car. It's just Doobs and I. And I was like, hey man, so what's up with this Xanax thing? Like, is this like a really valuable commodity? Like, what's going on with this? Because all these people wanted like lots of bars. A bar of Xanax is 2 milligrams of alprazolam. It's pressed into a little pill. They have different kinds. Let me let's see if we can do this for you. See if they have like a little collage of them. It'd be kind of cool to show you the different models. I mean, yeah, this is a good one, I guess. I don't know. Oh, here we go. This is the kind of a picture I want to show you here for this purpose. So, puta madre. Oh shit. Okay. What's up with these web apps? Sorry, man. This is really good pod right here. Let's do this. Let's do bars. Good pod. Okay, here we go. So these are Xanax bars, for those of you who don't know. All right, the one on the top left is a S903. It's produced by oops, stand by. Piece of shit. The one on the top is a S903. It's produced by I think Greenstone or something. And then the one on the top right is RO39. It's produced by Actavis, and the one on the bottom is the old extinct X2 that was made by Pfizer. They no longer make those. And in fact, Pfizer sold off all of their dyes for the X2 bar. And then I think even Greenstone? No. Anyway, somebody bought that dye and then began producing the G3722, which is kind of the follow-up to the X2. But these are different kinds of bars. They're all 2 milligram alprazolams produced by different pharmaceutical companies. And I didn't know any of what a lucrative market this was, but Doobie Snacks, Jacob McKelvie, began to fill me in on what was going on with that. And see, there's a couple of terrifying aspects of Xanax. One of the terrifying aspects of Xanax is that it has a side effect that convinces you you're sober, basically. Like, you take it and you don't feel loaded. And the other thing is that it creates a very, very dangerous, life-threatening physical dependence. So if you're dependent on Xanax, you have to take it or you will die. You will have seizures and you will die. It's actually one of the few drugs that creates a life-threatening dependence like this. Others are barbiturates and alcohol. But the withdrawal alone can kill you. And so, because of that, because of those two things, lowers inhibitions. It's like concentrated alcohol in a pill, very similar to that. Because of those properties, people who buy Xanax usually buy a lot of fucking Xanax, and they have to keep buying it. Now, to an aspiring drug criminal, that sounds like a gold mine. So I told him, hey, like, you know, I was involved in anonymous and cybercrime, and I know how the darknet markets work, and I can get like endless Xanax for like cheaper than you've ever heard of, you know. And nobody knew this was 2015, so Bitcoin wasn't popular. The darknet markets had pretty much only just been in the news because of the closure of the Silk Road in like 2013. But generally speaking, people didn't really know darknet markets, and they didn't know about Bitcoin. At that time, let's look up the historical thing for you. Value of Bitcoin. Oops. July 2015. So the Bitcoin's value in July of 2015 was $263 a coin. Presently, Bitcoin is trading at $112,609 per coin. So you can gauge by its price the obscurity of cryptocurrency at that time. And Doobs, Jacob McKelvie. I'm just going to call him Doobie Snacks always. So if you guys, who's Doobie? It's Jacob McKelvie. He's dead now. So they check the description. Dubes really gave me the crash course. He said, like, oh, here's how it is. Here's, And I said, okay, well, I'm going to go home and check out the darknet markets, and I'll tell you what I find. I found that I could buy it ridiculously cheap. And the other thing is that when you have pharmaceutical drugs like Xanax, you're really limited in the quantities that you can buy. So by getting counterfeit ones from the darknet markets, and the counterfeit ones are still alprazolam, they're just made by some guy with a pill press in his room versus Sandoz or Actavis or like a pharmaceutical company like Pfizer or something. And so the quantities were unlimited. I could get hundreds or thousands if I had the money to invest, versus a script, you could only get 30, 60, 90 at a time. And you were limited like per month. So I got, at the time, the darknet market that I was using was called Crypto Market. I'm not sure if it still exists, but I was ordering that from Crypto Market, and then I also had a vendor for counterfeit $100 bills from Crypto Market. And really, I was trying to find my way with Crypto Market and with the darknet markets, and taking these things that I knew from committing cybercrimes and anonymous to onto the streets and revolutionize the way that we were doing street crime. In 2015, I bought some counterfeit $100 bills from a vendor called CK Kings. Wonder if he's still alive or whatever, or not arrested. I don't know what happened to him. But I was buying these bills from him, and I had recruited the help of a courtesy clerk from my store named Joey Najarian, who's also in the description of this video. He's also dead too. And we were going to stores, Josh and Joey and I were going to these stores and breaking these $100 bills. But the problem with doing counterfeit money is that it's automatically the jurisdiction of the Secret Service, and the last thing I really wanted was to get raided by the feds again, and the feds don't fuck around. And the heat's really hot. To give you guys some context, every single counterfeit bill that is ever put into circulation by a criminal is kept by the Secret Service in a giant warehouse. And in this warehouse, they have, hundreds or thousands of drawers that go down the length of the fucking filing cabinets, with every counterfeit bill ever put into circulation. And the reason they do that is to try to track the sources and the manufacturers of these things, because if they keep getting the same types of bills showing up, then they can kind of, find their way to whoever's producing the things, and then of course hit pay dirt when they capture the manufacturer, whoever is it, Intaglio Offset Press or something crazy that's printing these things. It's a major threat to the United States economy. And so that being said, if you go into a McDonald's and you give them a $100 counterfeit bill and you get away with it and you leave, when they go to deposit that money at the bank at the end of the night or whatever it is, and they take the deposits off, the guys come in with the armored trucks, they pick them up. Those get found out at the bank because they don't have magnetic ink or they don't have the certain security fee. The bank knows the difference between, you can't put a counterfeit in an ATM, for example. And because of that, I was pretty apprehensive about making too much money off counterfeits because I knew that I was going to get captured doing that. We got away with it for a little bit. I mean, we got away with it, but we got away with it for a little bit, and I was just trying to not get too hot with that because we'd had a couple bills intercepted. I had a bill intercepted at T-Shirt Plus on El Toro and Rockfield. I had a bill intercepted at the AMPM at Muirlands and Alicia, a couple other places. This, of course, is it's 10 years ago. So, and so it was pretty important to diversify my operation. Well, when Doobie Snacks came along and this whole Xanax revelation was brought to me, this was exactly the little thing that I was looking for. It was something that could generate revenue, but that would only draw the heat of local state law enforcement. And that was Now, realistically speaking, anytime you send something through the mail, it's automatically a federal crime. So, as an importer, as someone who's buying these drugs from the internet and having them sent from, for example, Salt Lake City, Utah, which is where my final bar vendor was. His name was Opiate Connect _ fucking legend. And he would only come around, anyway, we'll get to that point later. But anytime you have these things imported to you, it's a federal crime. And the postal inspector usually be in charge of that, or the DEA, or whoever picks up the case, I guess. But I needed something like the Xanax operation to come along and change my life, to try to become, self-sufficient at these crimes and try to make enough money. And I had set a goal early on. I said I'm going to make like $3,000 or $4,000, and then I'm going to move to Arizona and build a recording studio with my guitarist. And I don't remember the moment that I crossed that line and when I made that $3,000 or $4,000, but once you get started, you really don't stop. And we'd done a test run. I bought some bars from somebody, I think, and then I resold them to Doobie Snacks because I wanted to see that he wasn't yanking my chain. He was with it, and he was. And just very, very quickly, Doobie Snacks proved to me that this was going to be the way for me to go. And Xanax at that point became my specialty and my commodity. Dubes and I worked really well together. We had a great natural chemistry. We were really good friends. One of those guys I'm never gonna forget. I'll give you a picture of him right now, just to help you a little bit understand things. Oops, obituary. It's my buddy, man. Whoops. You bastards! You fool, you've ruined my model. I'll have you flogged, keelhauled. I'll sue you. Let's do this. Okay, no, that's a Get Smart quote for anyone who's wondering. That's Jacob McKelvie. Fucking legend. And this kid, he was so funny because he was like, to this day, I think he had like maybe Asperger's or something, where he was like kind of off and just like a little bit different. But everybody liked him, and he could sell drugs faster than anyone I've ever met in my life, and that's never changed. This kid right here. I bragged about him to every criminal associate I ever had forever, because you wouldn't think it. He looks like a nerdy little white kid, but he's as OG as they come. So, we did all right for a little bit, and we were importing these bars and getting them. I was having them sent through the mail, through the United States Postal Service to my house, and to my house, and I would tell him when they were coming, and we would kind of arrange things, and then he would come, and the whole thing was, the whole package would be gone in moments. It was pretty much sold before it arrived. And this worked out really well for me because it allowed me to create a layer of separation between me and the end user and the drug user. I was just able to wholesale these things off to him. And as time developed, I had a little bit diversification of that network where I had a couple of resellers that worked for me. But Dubes was my right-hand man, and we ran a very clockwork operation together. Never compromised my trust, never did anything sketchy to me, ever. In fact, we'll get into it. But we took a break. I guess I was paranoid or something. I'm not sure why we stopped for a little bit. And we just went back to our normal lives, and we'd made a little bit of money here and there and done little things. We went back to our lives, and we're smoking weed together, still friends and everything. In 2016, late 2016, I believe November of 2016, late 2016, we were sitting by a pool in the jacuzzi with our friend. Like, we were we'd go into this community pool and like all congregate and stuff. And I'll back up a little bit. There's a couple of things I missed. There's one story that like I should tell, but I don't want to, because it's something that I still like. I'm not happy about it. No one was hurt or anything, or at least not physically. But I had the Joey who's in the description here. I had a drunken night with Trent where we basically lured him outside and held him at gunpoint, so that he would be afraid of us and not ever cause problems for us. And I was really drunk when we did this, and I know Trent was really drunk too. And he never worked with us again after that. But there were these things that were happening as I was becoming more immersed in these crimes that really were sinister. In November of 2016, on November 14th, 2016, I did crystal meth for the first time. I already made it and stuff, but I ingested it. And at that point, I basically didn't stop doing crystal meth. That's generally how that goes. But one night on meth, and Dubes never did meth. He was only a benzo guy and cocaine or weed and stuff. But one night I was on meth, and we started reminiscing about the year before, and we were thinking, man, things were going really well. Like, we should do that again. But we should do it bigger than last time. This time, let's buy like thousands of these things. Let's fucking retire, was the idea. And I asked him, I was like, hey, like, how was that going for you? Because I didn't know what happened. After I got a package, I would sell him the package, and then I would just go back to my life. I'd be writing songs and hanging out. And I didn't ever see the ground shit that was going on, you know. But I say, hey, like, what did it work? Like, was that working out well for you? He says, well, how do you think I bought that car? I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You bought a fucking car with that money? And he's like, yeah, he has Volkswagen. It's a Jetta. And I was just so proud of him. I was like, I really wore that as a badge. I was like, that's fucking cool. I said, I never made that much money doing this. He's got like thousands of dollars. I didn't know this. But that was fair. You know, I paid my price. I sold my price. He did his thing. And that was totally cool. I was like, oh, you bought a car with that. Yeah. And I said, okay. Why did we stop? So, pretty much that night, we said, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to import thousands and thousands of Xanax bars. And we're going to call ourselves K-Pack Pioneers. K-Pack is 1,000 bars. There's two terms for 1,000 Xanax bars. One of them is a boat. And supposedly it's an acronym that means bust out another 1,000. I'm not sure if that's true. But that's what I've heard. that a boat is 1,000 bars. And that's usually used by people who get their Xanax from the street or sell their Xanax on the street. People online get K-Packs. And at this time, there were a couple of subreddits that you could go on, reddit.com/r/. One of them was the Xanax Cartel, and the other one was Darknet Markets. They're both banned Reddits now. Banned subreddits. But I was a contributor there and an active participant there. And I kept seeing everybody talk about, I got a K-Pack here, a K-Pack there, a K-Pack this, K-Pack that. And I was like, I want to do that. But I would need a little bit of capital. At that time, 1,000 bars was $600 for me. So that was, 60 cents a bar. Wholesale, I'd flip a K-Pack for $1,250, and then on the retail end, like what Doobie Snacks was doing, that could range anywhere from like $2,000, $3,000 to $5,000 if you were selling individual bars, because they're $5 a bar on the street. So you could technically break a K-Pack down to $5,000, and that's a $4,400 profit. But nobody really does that, and I wasn't going to be selling individual bars like that. And so I was just wholesaling, these packages off. Dubes and I said, we're going to start up again, except this time, we're going to be K-Pack pioneers. And from that night, November 2016, and going into early 2017, that was our get down. I had come up on like $700 something basically, and I bought a K-Pack, but I bought it. It was like two separate things. I bought this 1,000. It was a little over 1,000. It was like 1,150 bars or something. And I had some of it sent to my house. I opened up a mailbox at the local UPS store where I'd actually work years later. And I opened a mailbox there, and I was having drugs sent there. And then we were getting rolling again in our activities. New Year's, going from 2016 to 2017, I was very heavily on crystal meth at this time. Pretty much dependent on it every day. And Dubes called me, and he said, hey, come outside, I just met this really cool guy. So I came out into the neighborhood. And our neighborhood, for Aliso Viejo, that was like the hood. It was like the Morningside Townhomes Association. Was where all the crime of Aliso Viejo pretty much centered. There was some people in there that were doing some stuff. One of them I won't mention because I just don't want to do him like that. But he was a really cool guy. He was actually my access to firearms, large quantities of meth, this kind of stuff. And I just don't ever want to, even though it's statute of limitations, he can't get in trouble. Out of respect for him and his family, I don't ever want to say who he was. But he's in my book. He's referred to by a pseudonym in my book. I came outside, and Doobie Snacks was sitting in the passenger seat. No, maybe the driver's seat. He was sitting in the driver's seat, and the guy was sitting in the passenger seat. He was this tall black kid named Tyson, or Levi Desperado. And Tyson had warrants out of Colorado for gang activity. His mom had basically taken him and his young son. It was 2 years old. It's not even that. Like less than a year old, basically, when I met him. His young son, Cobain. They took him from Colorado to California to try to get Tyson out of that world because he had warrants and he was up to all kinds of no good there. Just street thug bullshit. Well, his mom had a prescription to Klonopin, which is a benzodiazepine. And Dubes had met him because he was in the neighborhood and he was having an anxiety attack. He saw a black guy walking down the road, and he's like, hey, man, do you have any benzos? And Tyson goes, as a matter of fact, I do. My mom has a prescription to Klonopin. So they were immediately best friends. He was sitting in the car, and Doobie Snacks went to bed earlier than me because I was on crystal meth, and so when you're on meth, you stay up late, sometimes for days. And when he went home, Levi and I, or Tyson and I, were like hanging out, and we got along really well. We liked some same. I showed him Joy Division, and we liked the same types of music. And he was just a really, really smart kid. He was like 19 years old, but he was really fucking smart, just wise beyond his years. Not wise enough to, not be doing gang activity in Colorado, but to, for what's worth, he had left that and tried to clean up his life. And of course, I'd come along, and everybody that I got involved with at that time wasn't helped by me. Like, everything I touched got either reeled into my criminal conspiracy or pushed to the wayside. I was very, very about it. And that's like how I do anything. You guys see how it is. Like when I do these true crime streams to talk about Irons and the Zodiac and this thing and that thing, and I'm like really, really hard charging at any task that I want to do. Well, Tyson and I got along really well, and I just pulled him right back into crime. But he was so reluctant. He obviously had his young son to think about, and so he didn't do a lot of stuff with me, but we were best friends, like we were good friends, whatever. And I would always have these panic attacks because I was a dirtbag and on meth, and just, I think, spiritually very sick. And so with spiritual sickness came the constant fear of having a heart attack. I was working at the Old Navy, and the only reason I worked there was to supplement, like to have a fallback in case I ever like lost a package or like lost a shipment, ever got lost some Bitcoin, something like that. I would have a paycheck next week so I could get that paycheck and then start up again. I only worked like 10, 15 hours a week. I have these panic attacks. So I started to take Xanax. And Dubes had a friend from being a young kid. It's Ella. And she was also really, really hooked on benzodiazepines, and she had a secret meth addiction that nobody else knew about. I was the only person that knew. Like, me and one other person knew that she was doing meth. So the deal was that I would come give her meth and she'd give me benzos, and then I could take benzos and cure my heart fears. And we were building what now historically I refer to as the Trans-Europe Express, or we refer to it as the Trans-Europe Express. The Trans-Europe Express is an album by Kraftwerk, came out in 1977. And the reason that we named our operation that was basically because Ella would go to England, and we were still coordinating some of our crimes together. And I said, well, that's cool. Now we're international. Well, this group of us, we'd all hang out pretty much at Tyson's house. And just, like, drink and do drugs and conspire together. And the night of, must have been April 21st, 2017. I was really, really sick. I know, it's funny now that I start looking at the timestamp, I'm like, man, almost an hour. Where do I wrap up episode 2? I know where I'm going to wrap up episode 2 now. And I'll leave you all on a cliffhanger, because that's what they do on Netflix. I took my paycheck from the Old Navy, and I took the investments of a couple close friends or whatever it was. I think it was mostly just my money. It included my rent money even too. I took every cent that I had to my name, and I put it all in Xanax. And then I called my boss, and I said, I'm not going to come to work anymore. And he was a really cool dude, this boss. He knew I was up to some stuff, but he didn't know, like, exactly what. And he was always trying to help me. He was like, hey, man, like, do you need help, like, at all? And I was just like, no, everything's fine, just lying. I told him I'm not going to be coming back anymore. That was April 20th or April 21st, 2017. I met with my friend, Mowdy, and I told her, hey, I took all of my money, and I put it in Bitcoin, and I ordered Xanax with the Bitcoin. And if I get the Xanax, I can sell it, return the money, pay my rent, do this. And it was a decent little chunk of Xanax. It was probably almost 2,000 bars or something. I'm not sure exactly. I don't remember. But somewhere between 1 and 2,000 bars. In that something 1,900 range. I told her, if this goes well, this is just going to be my job. Because I couldn't live on anyone else's schedule at that time because I was having just horrible panic attacks and I was always in withdrawal no matter how much drugs I used. It had already gotten that bad in a span of 5 months of using meth that I was constantly in a withdrawal. And I had a benzo withdrawal, I had this benzo dependence, and I was hooked, and I had this meth dependence, and really didn't have the ability to set an alarm and wake up anymore. I couldn't regulate my sleeping schedules. I couldn't regulate anything in my life except for my desire to commit crime, and even that was out of control. And she told me, "You're retarded." You are so stupid. Because you're going to fuck up, and then what are you going to do? And I said, no, it's going to be fine. I'm going to gamble on this. Because I didn't know how to do anything but this anymore. This was now not only like an identity to me, but it was a life and death mission. That, the only thing that I wanted to do anymore was to sell drugs and do drugs. And so I told her these things. And she's like, you're stupid. I remember exactly where we were. We were walking through the parking lot at the corner of Alicia and Pacific Park. There's right now, there's a Rubio's there. There's a Marshall's, an Old Navy, a Poke Bowl restaurant or something, and like some other stuff. Used to be a Starbucks there, but now they've moved it. Anyway, we were walking through this parking lot. We're pretty much adjacent to what is now Hobby Lobby. I think it was still there back then. Can't remember for sure, but I think it was. Yeah, it was still Hobby Lobby. We're pretty much adjacent to Hobby Lobby right when we had this conversation in the middle of the parking lot there. It was the middle of the night, pretty much. It was probably like 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. And I said, I'm ready to just go all in. Like, this is all I want to do, is to sell Xanax. And she said, you're really stupid. The very next day, she was arrested by the Orange County Sheriff's Department for possession of a concealed weapon. I think it was a knife, and then possession of drugs. And she went to jail for about 2 months. In that span of 2 months, I'd gone, well, at the start of it, I went over to Tyson's, and I was sitting with my friends, like Ella and Katie, and Dubes and Tyson and these people and Josh or whatever. Went outside with Ella to the front yard, and I told her, I just quit my job. I'm going to be a full-time Xanax importer. And she's like, you're crazy. Everyone told me that this was crazy. Nobody believed in me. But I couldn't I couldn't do anything else anymore. I couldn't work for Old Navy. I couldn't even wake up when the alarm went off at, so-and-so in the morning, I didn't want to go somewhere, clock in and work for several hours. I just wanted to do my own thing. And pretty much at that time, my job was to basically do this, boop, boop, and walk to the bank, put some cash into some random account number for wallofcoins.com, get some Bitcoin, place the order. Here's my address. Bitcoin, okay, send here. Okay, bye. It would show up. Call Dewey Snacks to say the Eagle has landed. He'd show up, he'd buy it. That was my job. Very easy. It seemed. But that night, April 21st, April 22nd, I put everything I had into K-Pack Pioneers. When we come back, next time on episode 3, the next 2 months were fucking insane. Because now, not only did I have to rely on this shit for my income, but I really had to give it everything that I had, because if I didn't, I wouldn't succeed. And I had to succeed because I didn't have a job. Now, this was my job. So we're gonna go into, I think there's gonna be 2, maybe 3 episodes of this left to really break it down. But at the same time, the drama part of this story is going to get really wonky and crazy and weird and just demon realm. So that might take at least an episode. I think we're going to have the Trans-Europe Express as an episode next time. And then we're going to do the drama part. And then we'll do the arrest and the result. Next time on Keep It Pioneers.